Greetings. Just here at Celilo Park along the Columbia River in Oregon. We'd stopped off to say hello to Celilo Falls out there under the water, which you can't see, but what you can see all up and along the bank and all down the bank here at the park is this little red-berried or black-berried plant, depending on the season. This is nightshade, the deadly version, and you want to stay away from it. And it's kind of hard when it's so prevalent, but eating it would be bad. Rubbing against it, probably not so much. Just want to avoid getting it on you or getting it in you if you can. Specifically the getting in you. A lot of times people will not realize what they're eating and go ahead and pop these nice little red berries in their mouths, and they don't feel so good afterwards. Or they die. And they start out with these greenish ones, and then they turn red and eventually purple or black, and they look like they're possibly very edible. You see these ones are sort of on their way here to changing. And you want to just avoid it if you can. It's definitely an easy one to learn once you learn it. Again, if it looks like it's a pepper plant or a potato plant, you're probably dealing with nightshade. And the berries are a dead giveaway. They're not round, they're sort of oblong, as you might be able to sort of tell, or egg-shaped there by those green ones. But it's very, very abundant here. See, there's another example of it, and another one, and all along this little breakwater they've built. There's tons of it. There's a huge bush of it here. Here's another big bush of it, and it's all tangled into the blackberries, so it could be a little confusing depending on if you're blackberry picking or whatever. And here's another one, and it's definitely something to think about if you're not familiar with berry picking or anything like that. It's very, very important to note which ones you cannot eat. You can end up killing yourself or just causing organ damage, which is lifelong. You're not going to get your kidneys back anytime soon, or your liver, or although the liver can somewhat regenerate. Definitely don't want to be hurting it though. And again, it's very prevalent. And if you've never seen it before, you don't really know necessarily what you're looking at. You see, oh, there's little pretty red berries. Well, note the leaves. If you've, again, grow or look at growing peppers or potatoes, they look very similar to those leaves. That's how I spotted it in the first place. I went, what the heck are those leaves? I know those leaves. I went, oh, those are nightshade leaves, and those are nightshade berries. So that's definitely one to stay away from. There's a lot of stuff here growing that shouldn't be, like these sort of thistles that you see all here. That's all this brown dry stuff are thistles. There's plantains, there's the blackberries. There's a lot of things that probably shouldn't be here that we kind of don't want to see. And regardless of whether this one here is native or non-native, it's definitely one we don't want to be seeing, especially when there's people around who don't know what they're looking at. And yeah, there's apps where you can take a photo of it and identify it, but there's no guarantee that that app is going to work. And you can't just pop something in your mouth because an app said so, or because a YouTube channel said so. Do extensive research before you put anything in your mouth that's growing wild. You never know what you're going to end up with, because it's not just a matter of this could be poisonous, it could be what it's growing in is poisonous. And when you know that there is radioactive waste in this river and toxic waste in this river and all sorts of other really, really nasty things in this river, whatever's growing in this water probably will have that in it too, other than like the filter feeders like cattails and things like that. But even if this was an edible plant, I would probably avoid it just because of where it's growing. So it's not just important to know what plants to avoid, but also where to avoid gathering them. Obviously, roadsides. Don't ever gather from a roadside. The water that those plants are drinking is toxic. So avoid roadside berries, avoid nightshade berries, and do lots and lots of research. It's far too easy to end up hurting yourself or getting very, very sick. And as I've said before, for example, during the snowberry video, been with people who just pop things in their mouth without even finding out exactly what they are and going, oh, that tastes good, I think I'll help myself to more. And you just shake your head going, we're in a wilderness situation here. There's no help for hours and hours. You could die by then. And yet people will go ahead and eat things. So don't eat nightshade. And if you're sensitive to the nightshade family, don't eat it in general. That means peppers, potatoes. Just stay away from them. Eggplant, that's another one. I just forgot about that, because you look at the shape of these, they're kind of like little itty bitty eggplants. Well, there you go. They're all the same family, and there's a lot of families that have good plants and bad plants in them, and it's fun. I get to know who's growing around here and what. I think it's time to get back on the road though, so we want to thank you so much for joining us here at Celilo Park in Oregon to look at a bad plant, deadly nightshade.